In an industry drowning in tools, tactics, and noise, simplicity helps independent hotels move faster, think clearer, and outperform larger competitors. In this episode, I'll share ways how to use simplicity as a competitive advantage. If you have ever ended a full day at your hotel feeling exhausted, but unsure what actually moved the business forward, this episode is for you. Not because you're failing, not because you lack ambition, but because modern hotel ownership has quietly become far more complicated than it needs to be. More dashboards, more software, more strategy, more best practices, and yet, somehow, less clarity. Independent hotel owners aren't meant to manage 15 systems before breakfast. You weren't meant to question every decision. You weren't meant to carry the entire business in your head. And yet, here you are. Welcome to another episode of Hotelier Helpcast Podcast. If you haven't done so yet, sign up. And if applicable, ring the bell so you don't miss any future episodes. Here's the uncomfortable truth most owners won't say out loud. The problem isn't that hotel ownership is hard. The problem is that it's over-engineered. Somewhere along the way, complexity started masquerading as professionalism. More reports meant more control. More tools meant better results. More activity meant progress. Except it doesn't. The hotels quietly winning right now aren't doing more. They're doing less. Deliberately. They've simplified how decisions get made. They've simplified what gets measured. They've simplified what matters. And that simplicity gives them something priceless. Control. Inside your independent hotel blueprint, one principle appears again and again. Clarity comes before growth. Control comes before scale. Today's episode sits right at the heart of that idea. Because simplicity isn't about minimalism, it's about removing friction so the business can breathe. Now, before we go any further, let me ask you a question. Where has complexity crept into your hotel? Not because it helped, but because no one ever stopped to ask if it was necessary. Keep that question with you, and we'll come back to it. Simplicity creates speed, and speed wins. There's a reason large hotel chains struggle to pivot. They're not short on intelligence, they're short on speed. Every decision runs through layers. Every change needs approval. Every experiment carries risk. Independent hotels don't have that problem unless they recreate it themselves. Speed is the silent advantage of independence. But speed doesn't come from urgency, it comes from structure. Owners who simplify pricing rules, approval processes, staff responsibilities, weekly priorities don't waste energy debating. They decide, they act, they adjust. In the hotel owner's roadmap, 90 days to more bookings, more time, and less stress course, one of the earliest lessons is you don't need more energy. You need fewer decisions. Every unnecessary decision drains momentum. Should we run this promo? Should we change the rate? Should we respond to this review differently? Multiply that by 50 a day and control evaporates. Simply restore momentum because it removes debate. When the rules are clear, action becomes easier. Complexity feels productive until it costs you control. Complexity rarely announces itself as a problem. It arrives wearing a name badge that says improvement, a new tool to save time, a new report to track performance, a new process to look more professional. None of these are bad in isolation, but together they create noise. Complexity taxes attention is your most limited asset. Here's what usually happens. Software gets added, but not removed. Reports get created, but never questioned. Meetings continue long after the purpose ends. Soon, the business runs you, not the other way around. Control doesn't come from knowing more, it comes from knowing what to ignore. Owners lose control not because they lack systems, they lose control because they have too many competing ones. That is why simplicity is disciplined, not lazy. It requires choosing. Simple hotels aren't small, they're focused. Now let's reframe something that quietly trips up a lot of good hotel owners. Simplicity does not mean small thinking. It doesn't mean you're settling. It doesn't mean you've lowered your standards. And it definitely doesn't mean you've run out of ambition. In fact, it usually means the opposite. Simple hotels I've worked with aren't playing small at all. They're playing focused. They know exactly who they're there for. They know what they do well, and just as importantly, they know what they don't bother with anymore. That last part is where control lives. Because here's what rarely gets said out loud in hospitality. Most independent hotels don't struggle because they're missing opportunities. They struggle because they're trying to hold on to too many. Every new idea looks promising. Every trend feels relevant. Every tactic feels like it might be the one that finally makes things easier. So owners add packages, they add channels, they add tools, they add complexity. And slowly, almost invisibly, focus slips. Not overnight, not dramatically, just enough that decision-making starts to feel heavier than it should. This is why simplicity isn't about removing things randomly, it's about choosing deliberately. The most controlled hotel owners I know can explain their business in plain, ordinary language. No buzzwords, no jargon, no hand-waving. They can tell you who their ideal guest is, why those guests chose them, what actually drives profit, and what they've consciously decided to ignore. That clarity doesn't make business smaller, it makes it sharper. Inside your independent hotel blueprint, there's a line that often makes owners pause. If everything matters, nothing stands out. That one sentence explains a lot of overwhelm. When every guest type is welcome, marketing becomes vague. When every channel is important, nothing gets done properly. When every metric is tracked, none of them guide decisions. Focus restores hierarchy. It answers the question, what comes first? And once that's clear, control follows. Let me give you a simple example. Two independent hotels, similar size, similar location, similar room count. Hotel A offers corporate stays, weddings, families, short breaks, wellness retreats, dog-friendly weekends, seasonal packages, and a bit of everything else. Hotel B does fewer things, but does them well. They've chosen couple seeking quiet breaks, midweek calm over weekend chaos, direct bookings over volume, repeat guests over constant acquisition. Guess which one feels calmer to run? Guess which one has clearer pricing, clearer marketing, clearer staff rules? It's really the hotel doing more. Focus simplifies decisions before they become stressful. This is why simplicity scales better than complexity. When your priorities are clear, staff know what good looks like. Guests know what to expect. Marketing stops drifting, and you stop second-guessing yourself. That's not small thinking. That's disciplined leadership. Independent hotels don't win by copying chains. They win by choosing differently. Chains need systems to manage scale. You need systems to protect focus. And here's the quiet truth most owners only realize later. Control doesn't come from growth. Growth comes from control. When you simplify first, everything else gets easier. Here's one practical shift: the "what I notice" test. Not theoretical, not inspiring. This is practical. Here's the shift you can make this week and doesn't require new software, a consultant, or a long meeting. It only requires honesty. Look at everything in your hotel that appears on repeat. Every report, every task, every meeting, every tool, every process. Now ask one simple question. If this stopped tomorrow, would I notice in 30 days? Not eventually, not in theory, within 30 days. If the honest answer is no, it doesn't belong in your core control system. This question works because it cuts through habit. A lot of hotel tasks exist simply because they always have. Someone once asked for the report. Someone once installed the tool. Someone once scheduled the meeting. And no one ever questioned it again. But control doesn't come from maintaining history. It comes from choosing relevance. When owners do this exercise properly, a pattern usually appears. They discover reports no one actually needs, software used out of guilt, not value, meetings without decisions, marketing tasks disconnected from bookings. None of these are malicious. They're just leftovers clutter the fridge. Removing them doesn't weaken the business, it lightens it. So here's what often surprises owners. When you remove non-essential tasks, nothing collapses. Guests don't complain, revenue doesn't drop, and the hotel doesn't fall apart. What does change is mental space. Suddenly, decisions feel quicker, priorities feel clearer, energy returns. Because control isn't about doing more things right, it's about doing fewer things intentionally. This test also reveals something else, something really important. It shows you where you're managing out of fear instead of out of strategy. Fear of missing out, fear of being unprofessional, fear of what if. But fear-driven systems never create control. They create noise. The goal isn't to run a bare-bones hotel. The goal is to run a deliberate one. So when something passes the "what I notice" test, keep it, protect it, strengthen it. When it doesn't, let it go. That's not negligent. That is leadership. Most owners don't need more discipline. They need permission to simplify. Consider this your permission, because when you reduce noise, what remains becomes obvious. And what becomes obvious is where control lives. Why simplicity becomes your real competitive advantage. Here's where it all comes together. Because simplicity doesn't make your life easier, it quietly makes your hotel harder to compete with. Big brands compete on scale. OTAs compete on reach. Tech companies compete on features. Some independent hotels win somewhere else entirely. They win on clarity. When your business is simple, three things happen almost immediately. First, decisions speed up. You stop circulating. You stop hesitating. You stop reopening conversations you've already settled last month. That speed isn't frantic. Its calm decisions tend to be better. Your team feels it. Staff don't need more motivation. They need fewer mixed signals. When the hotel focus is clear, service improves without extra training, mistakes drop without more rules, accountability becomes neutral. When people work better when the target doesn't move every week. And third, your guests sense it. They might not articulate it, they might not even realize it consciously, but they feel when a hotel knows what it is. Clear hotels feel confident. Confident hotels feel trustworthy. And trustworthy hotels get booked again. This is why simplicity isn't a nice to have, it's defensive. It protects your energy, it protects your margins, and it protects your attention. In a market full of noise, simplicity becomes a moat. And here's something important. If you've been in this business for a while, you don't need to rebuild everything to get here. Most control problems don't come from what's missing, they come from what's unnecessary. That's good news. Because removing things is easier than adding them. You don't need a rebrand, a full tech overhaul, or a dramatic pivot. You need clarity about what actually moves the business forward and the discipline to protect it. Running a hotel without a plan, that's like sailing without a rudder. Romantic until the storm hits. Your independent hotel blueprint gives you 7 proven steps to calm the chaos and regain control without adding more to your plate. Download it now before the next wave hits. You can find a link in the show notes. What's one process, report, or task in your hotel that feels more complicated than it needs to be right now? Let me know in the comments. Here are your key takeaways. Simplicity speeds up decisions. Focus beats doing more. Control comes from subtraction. Clarity reduces daily stress. Systems create calm leadership. In conclusion, let's gently bring this together. Simplicity isn't about cutting corners. It isn't about lowering standards. And it certainly isn't about doing less because you're tired. Simplicity is about choosing what deserves your attention and protecting it. When hotel ownership starts to feel heavy, it's rarely because you don't care enough. It's usually because you care about too many things at once. Too many priorities, too many decisions, too many just-in-case systems running quietly in the background. What we've explored today is this simple idea. Control doesn't arrive when everything is perfect. It arrives when things are clear. Clear priorities reduce second-guessing. Clear systems reduce stress. Clear focus restores confidence. And confidence is what guests feel when they walk through your door. It's what staff feel when expectations make sense. And it's what you feel when the business stops pulling you in 10 directions at once. That's why simplicity is such a powerful competitive advantage for independent hotels right now. Not because it's trendy, but because it's rare. If today's episode resonated, you'll find your independent hotel blueprint available in the show notes. It's practical, a no-fluff guide designed to help you replace chaos with clarity, step by step. And if you're ready for deeper support, structural guidance, and systems that actually stick, that's exactly what we've built inside the Hotel Owner's Roadmap. 90 days to more bookings, more time, and less stress course. And for further reading, you might also enjoy an earlier Hotelier Helpcast article that pairs well with today's theme. Why every hotel owner needs fewer priorities, not more. Episode 26. You can find it on the Hotelier Helpcast blog. It explores how overcommitment quietly erodes control and how simplifying focus restores it. If you're finding value in these episodes, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you'd like to support us, you can always buy us a coffee. Keeps the lights on and the ideas flowing. No pressure, no urgency, just appreciation. In the next episode, I'm going to talk about why hotel ownership feels overwhelming today, and why it's not a personal failure, but a structural one. Until then, remember, you don't have to have it all figured out. You just need the right next step. Thanks for listening. and I'll see you next time.